StraighTAllDay.com.
The main modalities of professional work. And yes, this applies to any type of professional work, what I'm about to lay out here today. Now, there are many professionals who listen to this show. 99% of you are professional on some level, whether you do it as an entrepreneur, whether you do it working in corporate, whether you do it in the sports space. Professional just means you do something as your main paid occupation. All right. Very few of you are full-time students, or even if you are not employed right now, you're trying to be. All right. So then we got some full-time students, and maybe some of you who are not even in college yet, and you listen to this because your parents put you on or something like that. But the majority of you are full-time paid professionals. Now, I want to make sure we're all clear on what the modalities of professional work are, how they work, why they work, and what you all need to engage in and how you need to engage with each one at each level of what you do. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. And I'm going to say at the beginning of this that every point I make here today, I'm using language that was drawn from my background in the sports world. And I'm going to draw a clear parallel from how it works in sports, which all of you will be able to understand through my explanation. I'm pretty good at explaining things. And I'm going to tell you how it applies in your profession at the thing that you do, because these things are, again, modalities of professional work, which means they apply everywhere. So all you're going to do is translate these terms into whatever you call it in the thing that you do, but I'm going to make it really easy for you to translate this. There will be nothing left to ambiguity. Let's get into it. Point number one, the topic once again, are the main modalities of professional work. Number one, these are not in any particular order. They are, but they're not, because they kind of go around in a circle. There's like a cycle. Number one is the workouts. In the sports, we have workouts. What is a workout? Purpose of the workout is to maintain what you have and not lose it. That's what a workout is. When I go to the gym and work out, that's me maintaining the level that I have already achieved. I don't want to lose that level, so I have a workout. And this can also be called, some may call it brushing up. You may call it refreshment. You may call it general enrichment. It may be called continuing education. It could be called just a reminder of what your job is, what you're doing, retraining. You're just remembering what it is, what you're doing, how you do it, why you do it, and what the desired outcomes are. This is just ongoing training that you have in your work. For example, I remember when I was one of my first jobs out of college. Well, the first job that I applied for out of college was a outside sales job, which I didn't actually take, but I went and shadowed the people who did the job for maybe a day or two. And at the beginning of the day, they all had a sales meeting. And the sales meeting, it was probably like 5 or 6 salespeople and one sales manager. They would all get together in the sales manager's office. The sales manager would go over a few things and remind them of a few things and basically motivate and hype them up. The meeting was about 10, 15 minutes. And then everybody would go hop in their cars and go out and do their selling thing. Later on, when I did get a job actually in sales, a couple of years later, I was working at a gym called Philadelphia Sports Clubs. We would start the day with the sales meeting too. And then at that point, it was only about 3 salespeople. I was one of those 3. There was a head sales manager and there was an operations manager. And the 5 of us would meet in the sales manager's office, and basically the same thing. There was no hype up or motivation there. It was just, what are we planning for today? How did we do yesterday? Anything anybody need to go over? And then everybody would be sent off to go do their stuff. And again, this is about a 10 to 15 minute meeting. Now, whenever I watch TV shows about the police force, for example, I notice that the police officers usually have a meeting at the beginning of the day with the head sergeant or lieutenant or whoever they are, reminding them of what's going on in the streets, why it's going on, what they need to be looking out for on that particular day, if anything that happened the previous day that needs to be recapped. And this happens every single day before everybody goes out to work. In sports, for example, if you ever played a team sport, baseball, football, basketball, before practice starts, usually the coach gathers everybody up, blows a whistle or something to get everybody gathered around the coach. The coach gives some remarks about what the team needs to know, understand, do, maybe something that needs to be closed, a point that needs to be tied up from previous engagements, and then everybody goes out and actually starts the practice. The whole point is just letting everybody know what's the temperature of the situation right now. In sales jobs, there's always a sales meeting, as I already said. If you play a sport, coaches gather people for a quick word before the practice actually begins. Now, in the sports world, there is a workout after the gathering up period, whereas in the sales world, there's a gathering up period, then you go out and actually do the stuff. And the sports world is all kind of mixed into one thing, but we're going to get into that in a minute. This first one, the workout, is all about the things that you do just to maintain what you have and not lose what you have already developed. That's what it is. Maintain what you have, not lose what you've already developed. Most of you who work in professional jobs, especially if you work in any type of place where there's a big organizational structure, often they have some type of ongoing training or ongoing enrichment that you have access to, that maybe you can access on your own volition when you feel like accessing it. Maybe you have some type of requirements that says, hey, you have to access at least this much of it and do this much of it to make sure you get a certain amount of credits, and that can either make you look good with the bosses, or you got to hit a baseline amount, otherwise you're not doing your job properly. In many industries, this is called continuing education. You get those credits, and sometimes continuing education can be things that are designed to help you advance, and sometimes they're things just to remind you of the stuff you already know, the stuff that you're supposed to be doing that maybe you ain't doing the way that you're supposed to be. So the workout is just the brushing up, maintaining what you have. Understand that when you're a professional at what you do, you must do things to maintain what you have, because if you lose it, then you're going to lose the sharpness that made you eligible to be a professional, i.e. a person who gets paid to do this as your main thing. And if you let that skill level slip, then your opportunity may go away, and you may be replaced by somebody else who wants to take your job, who is willing to do the things to stay sharp in the game because you were not willing to do the things to stay sharp in your game. So the workout is the number one thing that you do as a professional. Number two, today we're talking about the modalities of professional work. Number two, these are not necessarily in a particular order, because these go in a cycle. So they can be interchanged at different times, and you may do more or less of certain things at different points and at different stages in your career. Number two is the training. Now, some of you may conflate training and workouts. I just told you indirectly, and I just pointed out to you directly, that training and workouts are not the same thing. That's why there are two different points here. The purpose of training, as opposed to a workout, training is based on intentional, measurable improvement. Training is an intentional, measurable improvement process that you do that is designed to make you better than the current state that you have. It's designed to make you more advanced from where you are right now. So you get better in a consistent and monitored and measured way. You were doing this much before, now we want to get it to this level. Now we want to get it to this level. Now we get it to this level. Training is all the stuff that you do when you're looking to advance your skill set, and you're looking to get better with your tools so that you can do your job even better than what you have been doing up until this point. So a workout is, for example, if you can lift 50 pounds, then you go to the gym and you lift 50 pounds because you know you can lift 50. You're trying to maintain your ability to lift that 50 pounds, which matters, because if you stop lifting completely, then you'll lose your ability to even lift the 50. Training is when, okay, you can lift 50. Let's see if we can lift 55 pounds. Let's see if we can try to do 60. This is trying to push yourself to go further than what you've gone to up to this point. So it's making your baseline level, is raising the standard, raising the baseline level of what you are capable of doing. Training is all the stuff you do, again, to advance yourself. Training usually involves, almost always, it involves learning from someone or something that knows things that you don't already know, or they can help you with things that you have not yet already mastered, or at least have you consuming material from someone who fits that description. So you can be trained by reading somebody's book or going through somebody's course or program, even though that person is not directly walking you through the material. This is the reason why people sell courses and training programs, and you can buy manuals and learn from them, even though you never shake hands with the person who wrote or compiled the manual. It's the same reason why personal trainers exist. It's the same reason why sales trainers exist. They come to your company and they do a training for a whole day, teaching you skills that will make you better at the thing that you do. So training is, again, you are learning new skills, whether directly or indirectly, from someone who has some skills, or they can teach some skills that you may not have yet implemented and or are not yet using. Training also and always involves some type of measured assessment. We have to see that doing this training has taken me from this level to this level. That's what training is. I went from this level to this level. This is the reason people have coaches. This is the reason people have mentors. The reason why people have accountability groups. The reason why people join programs is I'm at this level. I want to get to this level. Your program says it can help me do that. So I'm going to get in this program and let's see if it can get me from the level that I'm at to the level that I want to get to. And that's something that's measurable. And that's what training is. You can demonstrate that you have learned something, and someone or something can look at what you've done and see whether or not you are making proper progress or you're not making proper progress. In every profession, these people who are doing this are usually just called trainers. Sometimes they're called coaches. Sports have trainers. Salespeople have trainers. Every industry has people who do training. Again, they don't always go by this term, but usually they do. People who know their stuff and they can explain their stuff such that they can help other people get better at the same things that they have already mastered. That's what training is. I'm going to help you get better at the thing that I'm already good at. Understand that every professional must do consistent training to remain a professional. You must be consistently doing things to elevate your game to remain a professional. The reason why is because, especially when you're really good at something and it's established that you're good at it, your competition, your opponents will notice that you're good and they will make adjustments to be ahead of you. And if you're not training, i.e. making yourself better or adjusting your game to adjust to their adjustment, then you may eventually be surpassed and left behind. And now you being good is not as good as it used to be because your opposition has adjusted. You haven't adjusted, so you get left behind. You end up in the same spot. This is like the athlete who is really good at a young age, but they don't ever really work on their game. They don't do any real training to improve. They maintain, but they don't improve. And then when everybody else catches up, then they get passed by. I remember growing up in my neighborhood of Mount Airy, also known as Uptown in Philadelphia. There was a kid in my neighborhood who was way better than everybody else in our neighborhood when we were around age 14. And 14 was around the age that, even though I'd always been coming to the local playground, 14 was around the age when I started coming to the playground specifically to play basketball. I've been coming to the playground before, but I was doing other stuff. I played a little bit of baseball, etc. But around 14, I started playing basketball. And there was a kid in the neighborhood, and his name was Phil. He was way better than everybody in the neighborhood. And I thought he was way older. I thought Phil was like 18 or 19 years old because he was so good and he had like a grown man's physical build and a full beard when he was like at this age. I thought he was 18 or 19. Then at one point I heard one of the local coaches say, hey, Phil's only 14. He's the best player around here. And I said, that Phil, he's only 14? I was surprised. I thought the guy was 4 or 5 years older, but he was more developed basketball wise, physically than everybody else. And he was the best player around there at the time. The problem for Phil, and if he sees this, is no diss to him, but he could tell me if I got it wrong, if he ever runs across this, is that he didn't get any better. The same player that he was at 14, he was the same guy when he was 24. His game didn't get any better. He was good at the things that he could do, but as everybody else grew and actually evolved into grown man bodies that he already had, everybody started catching up to. Not everybody surpassed him. Most players just quit, but I surpassed him because he didn't get better, and I did, because I was doing training. He wasn't doing any training. He was doing workouts. He wasn't doing training. Those are two different things. Workouts is maintaining the level that you're at. And the level that Phil was at was good enough to get him to be an all-city, all-star in high school. He got a scholarship to go play basketball in college. And that's about as far as his basketball career took him and his talent took him. But he was talented enough at 14 to be good enough to do that. The same player he was at when he went to college, he was that player when he was 14. Like, he could have played college basketball when he was 14. That's how good he was for what he could do. But by the time I got to college, I'm 18. Phil's about 18. By that point, I was starting to get better than him. By the time I was 20, 21, I was clearly better than him. Because again, he didn't get any better. So all I was doing was just passing the steady point. He was at the steady point way ahead of me. All I had to do was pass that steady point. It's not like we were racing because he wasn't moving. I was like tortoise and hare, metaphorically speaking in some ways, even though the story of the tortoise and hare is complete bullshit. He wasn't even a hare. He was like a dead rabbit. All right, I was a tortoise that turned into a rabbit, and he was a rabbit that was way ahead of me, but he died before he got to the finish line. His dead body was there, and I just slowly, then eventually quickly moved past his dead body. Again, if Phil hears this, you can tell me if I got any part of that wrong, Phil. But anyway, people who know their stuff and can explain it, they will help you train and get better. I was able to, sometimes this happens, is you can train yourself. Depending on your baseline level, you can train yourself if there's enough information out there for you to train yourself. Secondly, you are disciplined enough to train yourself. Third, you're disciplined enough to actually do what you're telling yourself to do. And fourth, depending on where you start, if you ain't really that good, you got plenty of room for growth. All right, this is the good thing for me with basketball, as opposed to my friend here, Phil, who I just mentioned. Phil had some tools that, looking at him when I was 14, I said, man, if I had those tools, that would help my game a lot. I don't have those tools. I don't know how he got those tools. Maybe he had some training when he was younger. I don't know who taught him how to play basketball. Maybe it just came to him naturally. I have no idea. I never got a chance to ask Phil that question. So if he hears this, Phil, you can reach out to me. You can answer that question. How'd you get those skills at such a young age? When I started playing basketball, I had no skills. I didn't know how to dribble, couldn't shoot. I was tall, relatively tall, but it was not like I was some super athlete dunking on people or anything like that. I didn't really have any abilities. So I had plenty of room for growth because I didn't have anything that was already in place. So it was harder for Phil to get better than it was for me to get better because Phil was already good at a bunch of stuff and I wasn't good at anything. So anything I did was an improvement. Anything he did wasn't necessarily an improvement. So I got better at dribbling. I got better at passing. I got better at rebounding. I learned how to play on a basketball team, like what to do when you're on a 5-on-5 in a 5-on-5 game with other players. I learned actually what to do in those situations. I learned how to play defense. I learned how to read the floor and make decisions and all these kind of things that I had not come into the game with the natural ability to do. So because I had this baseline of nothingness, there was plenty of space for me to develop and get better, which is exactly what I did. On top of the fact that I happen to be in a vocation, basketball, where it's pretty easy to train yourself and make yourself better on your own, as opposed to other professions where you kind of need to be around people to get better. If you're in sales, for example, you need another person around for you to get better, because you got to practice your conversational skills. Sales is about conversation and communication. Well, you can't practice communication by yourself. I mean, technically you can, but you have to practice. Okay, when the other person says this, what do you say? You got to engage with another human being. Basketball, you can do a lot of it learning on your own, but it is a 5-on-5 game. So eventually you got to play in some games so you can learn how to do this stuff on a court with other people. So every professional does consistent training. If you want to remain, and or if you're calling yourself a professional, but you're technically not one yet, you got to keep doing training to become a professional. So I was training like a professional athlete even before I became a professional athlete, because I knew I had to keep getting better. Again, another reason was because of my baseline circumstance, which was I came from only playing 1 year of high school ball. Based on that background that I was explained to you, that makes sense. Then walking on to play Division III college ball. And based on that, nobody was knocking on my door to come play pro ball. So I continued to work on my game, because I realized that even though I was going to have to market and sell myself and hustle in order to get a chance to play pro ball, it's not like I was so super duper talented that it would be a no-brainer for a team to sign me. I knew there'd be other players who had somewhat around my same level of performance ability, and I needed to keep getting better so that I could at least have an edge against those guys and maybe surpass them, maybe be a little bit better than them. Combined with my ability to sell myself, maybe I can get a chance. And that's how I was able to get into professional basketball, because I kept working on my game and I kept getting better. As my career went on, I kept getting better at basketball. And those of you who are listening to this, there may be some of you who remember me from the days when I put basketball content on the internet. I was literally in the gym every day practicing, training, making myself better. Again, basketball is a vocation that lends itself to making yourself better on your own. You don't need a whole lot of other people around in order to do it, whereas other professions you do. So you just need to find out what do I need, or who do I need to be around, if anybody, in order to continually make myself better as a professional at what I do. And because if you're just getting by on the skills that you showed up with, either your peers, your ambitious peers, people like me, they will surpass you, or your peers will just adjust to what you're doing and eventually beat you at your own game, or your peers will just catch up to you and all of you will look the same and you become a commodity. Now, 3 years ago, you were way better than everybody, so you were the person, but now everybody else is equal to your skill set. You haven't gotten any better, so now you're just like them. Now, there's nothing different. There's no differentiating factor. This is why you got to continually work on your game and continually get better. So depending on the industry that you're in, the rules, regulations, and processes for that industry can change. So what worked 5 years ago doesn't work anymore. Things can be adjusted over time. You can't stay with the same skill set. Give you an example. I remember the very first ever speaking gig I did. I was speaking at this school called Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. And there were 4 of us that were going to speak. And it was this small event that was called Social Media for Business. And it was put on by the Chamber of Commerce in Boca Raton. And they were looking for 4 speakers to each speak on some different aspect of social media. So there was one guy talking about LinkedIn. One guy was going to talk Facebook. Another guy was talking, I don't know what the other one was. Maybe it was Twitter at the time. And I was going to do YouTube. And there was one main guy who was, I guess, like the headliner of this whole thing. He spoke first, and he was like the most known guy in Boca when it came to social media, I suppose. This is 2015. And each one of us, the other speakers, we were to send our slide deck over to him before the event so he could have it all organized and loaded up in the projector or whatever it was. And I remember I sent him my slides of the things I was going to say. And he wrote me back after I sent him the slides, and he said, well, hey, Dre, have you noticed that there's this new trend in speaking where people don't use all these bullet points on their slides? Maybe you could condense what you're doing a little bit more. And I looked at what he said, and I said, no, he's probably right. So what I did is I decided I'm not going to use slides at all. That was in 2015. And to this very day, I do not use slides when I do presentations. So any of you hire me to do a presentation or a speech or a keynote for your company or at your event, you don't have to worry about asking me to send you the slide deck weeks before the conference because there ain't no slide deck. I just, as a matter of fact, right now, at the time that you're listening to this, I'm preparing for a keynote speech I'm going to be doing in Orlando later on in 2025. And my executive assistant was showing me, well, I saw it was copied on this email that I got from our contact person at this company who is having me come and speak. And she was asking my assistant, hey, can you send over Dre's slide deck presentation so we can have it ready for the event? And my executive assistant already knows the answer. There ain't no slide deck. So we can put one slide up there that just has my name on it and maybe a nice picture of me, but there are no slides. I don't use slides when I speak. I just speak and you can just watch me. I remember I was speaking at this conference in Atlanta called the Association for Talent Development, also known as ATD. Very popular organization. And I spoke at that conference one year, and the event organizers, the way they did it, this is a very big event with a lot of speakers. So they have a system for how they do the speaker thing. And they asked me, hey, you need to fill out these things ahead of the event. And one of the things you had to fill out was you got to upload your PowerPoint presentation or your slide deck presentation. And I emailed my contact person at the company and said, hey, I don't use slides. I don't have a slide deck. And they said, yeah, the system is designed that you have to upload something. So if you don't upload anything, it's like an error. They won't let you go to the next page. So she said, Dre, if you're not going to use any slides, just make one slide with your name on it and the name of your speech and just upload that so that the system will let you go to the next page. And that's literally what I did. And then when I got to the event, I remember this event was in Atlanta. I remember at the beginning of my speech, because I've been walking around the event and looking in the rooms and watching other people speak. There's about 300 people in these rooms. So I saw the person who was speaking before me. They got all these slides. They're talking and everybody's looking at the slide and looking at them, looking at the slide, taking pictures of the slides. This is what people do at conferences. All of you professionals out there who go to events, I see you all taking pictures of the slides that you never look at again. But anyway, everybody's putting all these slides up and all that. And I remember when it was my turn to speak and I started speaking and I'm getting into the beginning of my presentation and I say I interrupt myself and I say, hey, I've been walking around this event and I see all you all taking all pictures of the slides. I know you got 300 pictures of slides in your phone. So then I pointed at the projector, and at the projector it was just a black screen with my name on it and the name of my presentation. That's all it said on it. And I said, you all see that slide right there? And I said, that slide's not changing. Okay, so if you want to take a picture of that, go ahead, take a picture. All right, other than that, you can just watch me. And people laughed, and then a few people kind of clapped a little bit because I think they were happy that they didn't have to keep taking pictures of the slides. They could just listen. They could just sit back, listen, and relax. And that's been my style of presentation the entire time that I've been speaking. So again, any of you hire me to speak, there are no slides. I don't need a slide projector. People just watch me on the show. The whole point here, folks, is in every industry, you had to know what your process is, what your skills are, because the regulations may change, the rules may change, and people may have different expectations. Doesn't mean you got to follow the expectations, but you do have to deliver. Remember, we are in a performance and results-based business. So make sure everything you do is weighed against the baseline of results. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, are the modalities of being a professional. Number 3, practice. Now, see, all y'all thought these all were the same thing. Training, workouts, practice, aren't they the same thing? No, they are not the same thing. What is practice? The purpose of practice, there is only one, is to get ready for the live performance. That's it. Only reason you practice is to get ready for the live performance. There's a simple one, but one that a lot of people overlook because a lot of people are just lazy. All right, that's it. A lot of people are lazy. And by the way, this is going to be a 2-part series. Did I tell you that? I didn't tell you that. This is going to be a 2-part series. This is part 1. In the sports world, for example, we have practices. Actually, we literally call them practice. Sometimes when I played overseas, a lot of times the players didn't call it practice. They called it training. And this is the reason why I'm differentiating between these things. What they call training in America, we call practice. Okay, so don't get confused. Any of you who maybe happens to be from outside of the United States, especially from Europe, or actually anywhere outside of the USA, they call practice. What we call practice, they call training. America has its own lingo when it comes to certain things, and the rest of the world has a different lingo, like the metric system. So in the sports world, we have practices. They're designed to get us ready for the upcoming games or the upcoming season. We practice. In the sales world, you practice by doing things like role playing. Okay, what do you do if the customer says, I don't have the money? What do you do if the customer says, I got to think about it? What do you do if they say, I got to talk to my wife? All right, you role play that and you get ready for how do you respond to that. That's the salesperson's version of practice. There's an organization that I did some training for, and their whole thing is based around role play, like literally showing people how to handle any type of objection they could possibly get when selling whatever it is they're selling. Now, the point of practice, everybody, is to take all the things that you have been training on and all the stuff you've maintained through your workouts. Notice the two elements being used here. And then you use them in what is basically a simulated live rehearsal. That's what practice is. A simulated live rehearsal. Speaking of the speaking business, which I was just talking to you about. And I'm trying to think. 1, 2, 3, yes. All 4 of the TEDx presentations that I've done 4 TEDx talks. One on discipline, one on confidence, another one on confidence, and one on confidence when you have none, one on too much confidence is not an issue, and one on what to do when you deal with setbacks in life. All 4 of them, we had a dress rehearsal. And a dress rehearsal is basically practice. Now, they all did it differently. I remember one that I did in Coconut Grove, the Coconut Grove section of Miami in 2016. They were the most thorough when it came to practice. And when I say thorough, here's what I mean. I was told that I was going to be giving this TED Talk probably sometime in July or August of the year before. And they had a schedule for exactly what you had to do. By November, you had to have the whole talk written out by Thanksgiving. The actual event was in February, around Valentine's Day. By around Thanksgiving, you had to have the whole talk laid out. Everything you're going to say word for word damn near, you had to give it to them written down. Then in December, you had a dress rehearsal where you came in and you literally did the presentation in front of a few of the curators for the event. Those are the organizers. They would be there and they would basically give you tips on what they thought about your presentation, your style, what you said, how you said it, etc. You would go through the whole thing. Then in January, you would go there again and you're supposed to do it again. This time you couldn't use notes. So if you went there in December, you could use notes and give your presentation on the stage. When you came there in January, you're supposed to do it again, but no notes this time. You had to do the whole thing. Basically, you had your whole talk down a month before the event. This is how organized they were to make sure everybody's talk was really, really sharp. And then you did one more the day before. It was a walkthrough, sound check, et cetera, for every single person. Anybody ever done anything on the stage, there's always a sound check, maybe the day before or the day of whatever event. So they had that. And then you give the actual talk. And not for nothing, that talk to this day, I'm just thinking of all the talks I did, is my most popular TED Talk if you look it up on YouTube. The point is they had live practice. Now, there was another one I did. I remember I did another one in South Dakota, believe it or not, a TEDx talk. They didn't do much dry run practice. They had a little bit of practice, but not really. The TED Talk was on whatever day it was. Let's say the event was on a Friday. I flew into town on a Thursday. I was actually coming from Vegas. So I came from Vegas to South Dakota. And I go to the dress rehearsal, and it wasn't really that much of a dress rehearsal. They didn't even have me do the whole speech. I did a little bit of it, just a little bit of a sound check, but they didn't even check to see if I had the speech down at all. They had no idea what I was going to say. Then I got up on the stage and I said it, and I had my shit together because I'm a professional at what I do. And I'm telling you that just to give you a juxtaposition of how different events go different ways, and people's version of practice can differ from one venue to another, from one organization to another. There's another TEDx talk I did in Vegas. This was not the same year. And in this one, we did have a dry run the day before, but they were not nearly as stringent with the preparation as the other one. I did that dry run, and this is the only TED Talk I ever did where I felt a little bit nervous, right before I got on the stage, because I had put this talk together in a very short period of time, and my style for putting together presentations then is not the same as my style now. If you asked me to put together a talk right now and said, you got to give this speech in 30 minutes, I would ace it because I have a different style for doing it now that makes it easier to compartmentalize the parts of what I want to say. But back then I didn't do that. Back then I pretty much memorized everything I was going to say word for word. Then I just went out there and said it by memory. And I'm good at that when I have enough time to prepare. This one, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. I had 2 weeks to get ready for the speech. And I didn't feel like I knew it properly. So let's say the TEDx event was on a Friday. We had a dry run on Thursday, and I was nervous as hell because when we went through the dry run, I was messing up my talk. I was missing things that I was supposed to say. And I'm like, shit, I don't want to get on the stage and mess up on camera. I can't do that. It goes against the grain of my identity to mess up on camera on stage. So right up until I was about to go on the stage, I'm walking in the back of the venue, pacing up and down the hallway, talking out my talk to make sure I hit every damn line. And then I got on stage, and of course, true to form, I hit every damn line. I'm not telling you that to impress you. Actually, I'm trying to impress you a little bit, but really to tell you that to impress upon you that the way certain people have you practice, not the same way that everybody else has you practice. All right, different organizers, different coaches, different trainers, different bosses, they look at practice differently. And the point of practice, no matter who's doing it, is to put you in a simulated live rehearsal so that you can see, and whoever's running things can see, that you are using and executing the skills that you developed in the way that they were taught to you. That's the whole point. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect, or another saying is perfect prior practice precipitates perfect performance. As our coaches used to say to us in sports, you play the way you practice. That was their way of saying that if you're not practicing in a proper way, or practicing hard, or practicing in a disciplined way, that means you're probably not going to play in that way, which means we're either setting ourselves up to lose, or you personally, player, you're setting yourself up to not get in the game, because clearly what you're doing in practice is a reflection of what you're going to do in the game. I don't like what you're doing in practice, so I'm not going to let you get in the game and mess up. So the more sharp your practice routine, the more sharp you will be in a live situation, ostensibly. This is the way the theorizing goes. So that next module is the practice. So let's recap what we have here. And again, tomorrow we're going to go into the other modalities of professional work. And again, these somewhat go in order, but not really. But all of these are part of the game. Number one, the workout. The purpose of the workout is to maintain and not lose what you have. Number two is the training. Purpose of training is to improve on what you have in a consistent, monitored, and measurable way, where you can measure and see, I'm getting better because I was doing this, now I'm doing this, and you can literally look at it and see that there's consistent progress. Number three is the practice. The only point of practice is to simulate the live situation so that you'll be ready for the live performance, whatever and wherever that may be. All that said, tomorrow we're going to go into part 2 of this so you understand the modalities of professional work. Between now and then, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com so you can start putting these modalities into work when it comes to your workouts, your training, getting better, your practice, so that you're ready for the live situation. And then when you get in a live situation, actually performing the way you're supposed to. We're going to talk about that a lot tomorrow. Work on your game. Dre, all